One of the biggest issues being debated this legislative session is whether or not Mississippi should abolish the state income tax.
Well, now a bill which would accomplish this is by setting a higher sales tax on many other items has passed the State House of Representatives. Joining us now is Russ Latino. He's the president of the organization Empower Mississippi. And Russ, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Byron.
Well, a similar bill passed the House last year, but it died in the Senate. We also see that the Senate is working on its own tax bill. What makes you excited about the House's version right now?
I think yesterday was a great day for Mississippi working families, Byron. I think the bill that came out of the House of Representatives yesterday was much improved over last year. It showed a lot of thoughtfulness. It was simplified in a lot of ways. You could see the governor's influence in the bill. If you look at the proposal from last year to this year, what you see is that this year's bill eliminates the income tax more quickly. For most people, most working people, if this bill were to pass in the first year, you essentially would have your income tax eliminated. For higher income earning individuals, it would take a little bit longer based on revenue growth over a time period. But what we're looking at is the complete elimination of the income tax, a dramatic reduction in grocery taxes paid, and also a dramatic reduction in the amount that it costs to get your license plate or your car tag by virtue of a credit, so that virtually all Mississippians would experience real tax relief done in a responsible way that makes sure that we have sustainable funding for the core functions of government. It's just a much better bill than the bill last year. We'll certainly see how it goes through the Senate, and there'll be changes and there'll be work that's done. But it's a really good start for working families in Mississippi.
Russ, part of the reason for the reforms is the state revenue picture. Lawmakers have a lot more money to work with right now, but is eliminating the income tax affordable for the state in the long run should revenues head down again?
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting on over $1 billion in surplus and no signs that that's abating in the near term. Certainly, we want to be conservative when we're thinking about the budget outlook and not assume that things will always be this rosy. But the reality is that there are resources available to the state right now that make this possible. And then if you look at the 9 states, Melanie, that don't have income taxes, what you see is not only do they dramatically outpace national averages when it comes to economic growth and population growth, but they're outpacing when it comes to revenue growth for state government and core services. And that's happening because populations are getting bigger. There are more jobs, there are higher wages in those states. And so there's certainly a path forward to make sure that we have sustainable spending, that core services like education are taken care of, and at the same time that Mississippians have more money in their pockets to invest in their families, their businesses, and their communities. I'll give you a couple quick examples. If you had a working mom, single mom making $30,000 a year in Mississippi, average car, average grocery bills, average spending, she's looking at somewhere between $1,300 and $1,400 a year in savings if HB 531 were to go into effect. You've got 2 working parents in a family with kids making $70,000 in taxable income, average car, average grocery bill, average spending habits. That's about $3,500 a year in savings. Now you add all that up across our entire working population and you pour that back into communities in Mississippi. That's where you see real economic growth. That's where you see people start to take notice of us. And so I give the House an awful lot of credit, give the governor an awful lot of credit for thinking boldly about how we're going to change and transform the state. We'll see how it unfolds, but we're excited at this point in time.
Russ, real quickly, how do you see this increasing the population where we're losing people in the last census?
Yeah, so one of the very interesting things that you see in the 9 states that don't have income taxes is that they have seen population growth that has doubled the national average. So capital is essentially moving into those states because it's a more capital-friendly environment. The more you see economic growth, the more you see job creation, the more people gravitate towards that. You can imagine a scenario with a wealthy businessman who lives in New Orleans. Maybe they've already got a summer home in Bay St. Louis in Mississippi, and they could live anywhere, looking at that circumstance saying, you know what, I can go over to Mississippi and save $50,000 a year in income taxes, and instead I'm going to plug my money into the Mississippi economy. That's what's happened in Tennessee. That's what's happened in Florida, Texas, other states that have gone this direction. There's a clear path and design for how to do this. and ultimately lift the state up and make it a more attractive environment.
All right, Russ Latino, Empower Mississippi, thank you so much for being with us and sharing all that great insight there on the
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.